and I decided to write it on paper, to get it out to help me. Because while I'm talking with you, Amani, I'm getting counseling now as I tell my story, even though it's been over 30 years. When stuff like this happened to a person, excuse me, it stays with that person for a very long time. I mean, it stays there. So, I decided to sit down and tell my husband and my kids, and they decided to say, hey, once you write a book, one of my kids said, once you write a book, Mom, you can help a lot of people, a lot of kids, Mom, that will come forward, and may, get them to come forward. And that's how it started. I decided to say, okay, I'll write this book and put it out there and tell my story. I have an uncut version and I have a clean version.
Wow,
the uncut version, I went straight to the point in the book. I said everything that went on. I had to go back in time, and I decided to say, wait a minute. Once I got it published, I did a self-publishing. Once I got it published, I said I got to write one for the kids.
Wow!
So I went on ahead and did a clean cut for the kids, so they can be able to read it. Because my message is mainly strongly for kids to understand to never be afraid to speak out with abuse.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because it took me so long. It took me over 20 years to be able to speak out about my abuse. It took me
and that whole time. Yeah, that whole time you felt like you had to keep that to yourself. I mean, when did you finally get help? How did you get away from the people that you were around when you were desperately trying to find someone who would help you when you were unfortunately being abused and being attacked? Were you ever under the protection of the state, and did you have to ever get a chance to go into foster care so you could be a little bit safer?
No,
Wow.
no, I wasn't. I can tell you this because it is a part 2 of Scar for Life, and I know you read part 1.
I did. I was fascinated. I
know because a lot of people tell me at the end of my, the first book, they say, "Wait, what happened?" I get a lot of people say that. Mrs. Wallace, what happened? But it is a part 2 that's already been written, and I'm just waiting to get it published. I have to get it published. But
you will get it published. Don't worry, you will get it published. That will happen. It's your book. As I've said already, and I've been letting people know, I think that, as you said, teenagers, especially young girls, should read this book, and you go out motivational speaking as well, don't you? So,
yes, I do. Do. I decided to, to speak out. That's what I want to do. I have a speech that I do for, the kids. I have a child abuse speech. I have a domestic violence speech. I have a Stop a Bully, Save a Life speech. Wow. Because I was bullied so much in school. So Mrs. Wallace, just trying to get the word out to kids the best way I can, and anybody that's going through abuse or anything, because abuse come in a lot of different forms. So
yes.
If you read this book, I guarantee you, you'll get something out of it. I know that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Definitely, people. The book is called Scar for Life. You are listening to the Ask Avani Show. Wow. I must ask you, Emily, please tell us, have you ever managed to speak to your mother and any of your other siblings about why they left you behind and what happened to you? Because that's a major thing. Did you get a chance to ask?
I asked my mother that, and the only thing that my mother can tell me is that I was a very fast little girl, so that's why she left me. The other siblings,
what does she mean by that? You were 11 years old.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and I can't even imagine leaving my 26-year-old just homeless with nowhere to go. I can't even imagine. And at the age of 11 years old, and that's the only thing she could tell me. My other siblings is saying, well, I'm totally wrong. Like I said earlier, I'm totally wrong. I should not be putting the business out to the street. So, the only family that I have right now is my immediate family, my kids and my husband. That's it. Some of my husband, relatives that's in Toledo, Ohio, they support me. But other than that, my other siblings and my mom, they does not support, what I'm doing. They totally against it. But, I really got, when I tried to bypass it. I tried to, when I got back in the picture with my mom. I went to her house one day when I finally found her. I was 16 years old. I was almost 17. It was below zero.
Wow.
Outside. I knocked on my mother's door, and when I found out where she stayed, from my sister's boyfriend, and I found out where she stayed, and I knocked on the door. My older sister came to the door, and she said, she didn't even open the door. She said it out through the it's like a mail chute.
Right.
She said that, like a mail thing inside the door. She said, moms don't want to see you. And I said, why? She said, she just don't want to see you. Now, I've been out there 6 years, and she still don't, what did I do? And she still don't want to see me? So I'm like, well, I want to hear her say that. Tell her to come to the door, because I continue to knock. My sister closed the thing up, and I continue to knock. I said, let moms tell me that. Let her tell me that. At that time, she didn't want to see me. So I left, I started back walking, and I'm 16. Then, after I went through all that on the streets, and I jumped up, so far with, how my mother did. But let me just go back a little bit. That's something that I didn't mention. Even though when I find my mother, I end up back walking. She didn't want to see me, so that was fine. That's what she would choose to do at that time. But while I was 11 and a half, 12, I'm going on 12. Right before my birthday, I was walking. I was walking in the streets, and a guy jumped out of his car and grabbed me in his car, and he shut the door. But when he shut the door, it was a type of lock on the door that you cannot open with your hand.
Oh my
the lock
God.
was all the way in. I cannot open it. So he went around, in the car. He went around in the car, and he took me. He drove the car. I was crying, saying, "Please let me out. Please let me out." He wouldn't let me out. He kept telling me to shut up, just shut up. And he took me. I've been trying to figure out where this guy took me today. But he took me, that drive could have been like maybe about 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And he took me somewhere, and he raped me. And I started, trying to, and he looked like he was at least in his late 20s. And he was, and when he got done with me, he told me, to get out, now leave. But I didn't know where I was. I was crying, and then I started walking up the street, and then I guess he changed his mind. For some reason, this guy changed his mind for me walking to come back while I'm walking up the street, grabbed me back in the car, threw me in the car, and then drove me somewhere and let me out. So I guess he didn't want me, as I got older, I guess he did not want me to know where I was. Right. He didn't want me to remember. He figured that I would have probably remembered, and the police would have got him.
So maybe that was somewhere near where he lived. So he didn't want you to,
He took me to, yes. So, and I just, I started walking, and, back walking again. I'm back on the streets again. Like I said, Mrs. Wallace been through so much that, and that's why I speak today. I don't want no child to experience what I experienced. I was out there on the streets, and I was raped over 3 to 4 times at the age of 11 or 12 years old. By different men. It's really sad, but I wish, I would have spoken out. I should have, while the molestation was going on inside my mother's house. I should have told. I shouldn't have kept it in like I did. I was scared and terrified. I didn't know what to do.
Exactly. So, you were a child. You didn't know what to do. You didn't know if you told what would happen, and you didn't want to be taken away from what you knew. So as a child, you have to, how do you make up your mind? You're not an adult to think, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. You don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
You're scared.
I was told so many different stories. While I was walking, I ran across one of my sister's friend. She was like about 13 years old, and you know, and this is not. I want you guys to know this is not make believe. This is a life that I lived at the age of 11 years old. I ran across her, and she was at the bus stop, and she got to talking to me, asking me, well, my sister, and I got to telling her everything. I got to telling her everything about what happened, what went on, and the next thing I know, a car came up, and she said to me, she went over there talking to that man. I didn't know what she was saying. I could hardly hear him, but I knew it was a man's voice, and the next thing I know, she said, Emily, come on. But I've been out there for so long. And then I said, where are we going? And she said, well, I've been knowing him for about 3 months to 3 weeks. I didn't catch that she said 3 months to 3 weeks because I wouldn't have got in that car, but I did. I got in that car, and I end up, riding down the road, riding somewhere with them, and I get raped again.
Oh, my God. You have been through so much.
I've been through so much, and that's why Mrs. Wallace can talk it out. Mrs. Wallace can tell her story because it happened to me. A person can read my book, and I'm not just saying to read my book just for the financial, for you to get the funds. I want my book to be read. I want my book to be heard because I don't want no child to go through what I've been through. And that's the whole point.
Wow.
If there's any child out there that wants to read my book, they can get it straight from the author for free. Just send me an email at authortinasmith@gmail.com, and Mrs. Wallace will send you a book because you need to read it. It's a powerful book, and it's a life story, and it's real. It's something that really, really happened in my life.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
Any question that anybody have, Mrs. Wallace can answer each question. I don't have to. It don't take me much time to think about if you ask me a question or something that happened in that book because it happened to Mrs. Wallace.
I mean, I have to ask you, when you said you tried to speak to your mother, did you get another chance to speak to her? So when they said, what do you believe what your family told you after you were asking them why they left you behind? And did you get a chance to tell them just some of the things that happened to you?
I don't believe that. I does not believe that. At 11 years old, my mother, let me just say this. I always been the black sheep of the family. My mother always made difference with my other sisters and brothers with me. For some reason. I don't know, like I said, I don't know what it was, but I'm thinking it could have been because my mother had 5 different baby daddies. She had 12 kids with 5 different daddies. So with my dad, I was his baby girl. Yeah. So I don't know if it was something that she hold against my dad, the reason why she just was like that with me. I don't know. To this day, I doesn't know. I've been asking myself that for over 30-some years, and I can't come up with it, And nothing, I just don't know. How can you leave a 11-year-old behind like that? How? I just don't know.
It's a question that will always, even the listeners, I'm sure, are wondering, how could a parent knowingly, willingly take all the other children and just up sticks and leave one child behind? And were you one of the youngest children?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, see, one of the youngest children, you just decide, okay, I'm going to move. I mean, it's bad enough if you say to the child, I'm locking you in your room for something you've done and whatever, that's bad enough. But you actually up sticks and physically move the whole entire family and leave this one child behind. I'm sure there are parents up and down the country, around the world, asking this as they are listening to the Ask Avani Show today, wondering how could a parent do that knowingly, willingly. And it's not like I'm assuming that you didn't think that your mother had any type of mental health issues at that time.
No,
if she couldn't cope, then
I didn't because she don't have that now. She don't have a mental problem. It's just, like I said, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. A lot of people actually, they say, well, Mrs. Wallace, do you still love your mother after all this? I was asked this yesterday inside a CVS store. I went to get my eye drops because I'm blind. Mrs. Wallace is blind. I went to get my eye drops. My husband took me. And I was inside CVS, and a guy said, hey, I read your book. And I said, yeah. I said, oh, thank you. He said, yeah, I read your book. He said, Mrs. Wallace, do you have any, um,